So good morning, viewers. Thank you for being part of my show. I welcome you to Go Venture TV. And as I've been saying, we try to look at the trading issues in the business and what is happening in the business arena so that we can make people more aware of what is around them. So today I want to look at the business daily, because one of the things that I have noted is that we actually don't look at the business daily critically in this country, and especially the other medias that we have. And we only brush on it slowly and we continue with our life. So I wanted to look at what is happening, or the trading story or the reading stories in the business daily. And the business daily is a good newspaper to look at because of the issues in business, especially for people who have an interest in business. So if you look at here, you have the prices of shares that were there yesterday, or the closing prices of the shares yesterday. And anybody who is making a decision of what to buy and what to sell, you can actually look at what is happening there and know whether it is important for you to buy them or not. Now, the leading story in the business daily is about the gap between the rich and the poor widening in the country. And you actually expected this, especially because of what has been happening in our economy, the issue of COVID, the inflation, the inflation levels and all that, and also the issue of debts, because all these things actually leads to the widening gap between the rich and the poor. And if you look at this report, what is there in the report is that we have had a situation where from COVID time, the gap between the poor and the rich has been widening in the country, actually, according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And they have a report that some of the counties that have the highest gap, one of them is Nairobi. No, though Nairobi is one of the richest county in the country, we still have a situation where we have a very big gap between the rich and the poor in Nairobi. And you expect that and you can see it. The other one is Turkana. And one of the challenges that I have with Turkana is that although Turkana has a big mass when it comes to the geographical, the size of the county, some of these counties were supposed to actually catch up with some of our counties, basically because of the equalization fund as part and parcel of what they get in the county government allocation. So I don't know why it is still that bad for Turkana with all these resources that are going to the county. But I think we actually need to start asking ourselves whether the equalization fund plays its part when it comes to that area. If you look at some of the counties that are actually that have the biggest gap, you have the Turkana, we have Nadi. I don't know why Nadi and Naba, it's a rural county. You have Kitui, Machakos, and Meru, and yes, and Meru. But we have the some of these rural counties having the lowest level of unequalness. You have Vihiga, you have Makueni and Bomet and Busia and Nyandaro. And I think in the future, it's important for Kenya National Bureau of Statistics to tell us why they think that the gap between the poor and the rich in some of these counties is the highest and why it is the lowest. So if you look at the lowest in some of these counties. So now, this is coming in the backdrop of a situation where we are also being told that the number of the dollar millionaire and multi-millionaire has increased in the country, especially in Nairobi. In Nairobi. And maybe we would ask ourselves, what are these dollar multi-millionaires doing that other Kenyans are not doing, such that we still have many more people wallowing in the miasma of poverty, while we also have many more people, the number of the people who are making a lot of money increasing in the country. So that is one of the juicy stories in the business daily. We also have this story about the Saudi Arabia overtaking China as Kenya's top import market. And I think one of the reasons as to why we have this is because of the oil. The contract between the government of Kenya and the government of Saudi Arabia in the shipment of oil, I think 2 months ago. If you look at this. We have a report here that Saudi Arabia overtook China, India, and United States to become the biggest single importer market for the first time, aligning the weight of the petroleum product that was actually bought the other day. The one that we were told was bought in Kenya shilling. So that is what actually has made Saudi Arabia to be one of the biggest importer of products in Kenya. So there before we used to have China, India, and UAE because we used to buy oil products from the UAE. So if you go down here, you'll find how much they have imported to this country. You have China at 30.3 billion. You have India 27.32. You have UAE at 13.7 billion. And now we have Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, how much did they actually, because of that oil shipment to the country, I think that is what has actually put them at the pole position when it comes to the importation of being the biggest importer. So some of the things that Kenyans import from China, you can see them. You have electronics, you have electrical products, machineries, iron and steel, plastic, articles of apparel and furniture. All these are things that we import. Now, I think the question that we need to ask ourselves to try and answer is how much Kenya is exporting to this country. Because one of the things that is bringing all these challenges that we have is that we are a net importer country, but we also export very little goods and services, and export very little goods and services to some of these countries. And I think we need to start thinking about how we can increase our exports to these countries. So there's also a story about the banking sector, how the banking sector have made a lot of money from non-interest income. I saw that story here, non-interest income. And this is because actually, if you read that story, they are saying that this has actually been driven by the Forex market. If you look at what is happening with our shilling in this country, you will understand why the banks are making a lot of money when it comes in the Forex market. If you actually look at the difference between the price, how much they are buying the dollar and how much they are selling to us, the gap is very big, and I think that big gap is a reason behind banks making a lot of money in the Forex market and also increasing the non-interest income for the banks. So we also have another story here on, let me see the story, another juicy story that we have here on central bank. I saw a story. Oh yeah, we also have this story here of the problem with the printing of the passport. And we wonder, actually you wonder, 70 million is very little money for this country. We have had people waiting for their passport for the last 3 or 4 months. And just because of a machine worth 70 million shillings. Why can't the government be serious with some of these things? Because they also make money from them. The State Department of Immigration and Citizen Services is setting up to receive an extra 70 million in the upcoming budget for the purchase of high-capacity passport printer, following the booklet delivery backlogs on account of 40 machine. And they want to tell us that this is the reason as to why we have actually the backlog, the big backlog. I think Kidiki should do better than this. I think this is a problem that is very small, a small problem. 70 million is very little money for this country to hold everybody hostage when it comes to the backlogs on some of these passports. We also have a story here about the challenges the government has when it comes to to actually borrowing money in the domestic market. CBK boasts one of hurdles meeting borrowing target. We've had a problem actually with domestic borrowing in Kenya because it seems as if the domestic investors are not willing to actually lend the money to the government. And that is why you see the CBK governor talking about a problem or a hurdle in meeting the borrowing target, especially if the budget relies much more on the domestic borrowing. So the outgoing central bank governor has warned that the government is facing an uphill task of realizing its borrowing target from domestic market in the new fiscal year. People have very little confidence in lending money to the government, and that is why you see we have that challenge. So the CBK says 521 billion to be sought from the domestic market, that the government is going to borrow of 521 billion in the next financial year is a tall order, and this having perverse outcome at a time the market is struggling to woo investors. So we have a situation where the investors are not willing to actually borrow from, lend the money to the government. And the CBK, the outgoing CBK governor is saying that if you have people are going to rely on these private, the investors, the domestic investors, then you have a problem because we have a challenge wooing them to actually come for the government papers such as the treasury bills. So the CBK now wants the National Assembly to compel the Treasury to actually reverse downward the planned domestic borrowing for the financial year, the one that is starting in July 2023-24, citing challenges in the market ability to realize the target. They cannot be able to actually get these targets, basically because the investors are not willing to lend to the government. CBK lists 89% of the borrowing program target in 2021-22 fiscal year and 57% in 2022-2023. So you can see we have a situation where the domestic, actually whatever they are getting in the domestic borrowing, through the domestic borrowing is going down. We have a very little confidence. The investors are not very confident when it comes to the to lending money to the government. So that is what the central bank governor is actually trying to tell the treasury. And if you look further, he actually gives an example of what happened to the board in April. In the mid-April, the government was compelled to cancel the auction of a 15-year board on low appetite from the investors. So the investors were not willing to invest on a 15-year board, and the government, the central bank did not have any other option of the government than to do what we call to cancel it, because very few people subscribe to it. In May, the government issued 2 tap sales on 3 years board, an indication that the exchequer has switched gears to lean on short-term boards as it confronts the market realities of the low appetite for the government paper. So that is what is happening. And I think that is why this guy is telling the government that, the treasury, that they need to stop relying on the domestic borrowing much in their budget, because we have low investor confidence when it comes to that issue. So those are some of the stories. We have very many other stories that I'm not going to look at, very many other user stories that I'm not going to look at, but I just hope that I have made you people actually understand or know what is in a business daily today. And with that information, then you can also be able to make sane decisions, especially when it comes to investing and all that. So thank you very much. Have a nice day, and actually do subscribe to my channel, where you'll be getting some of this information that maybe you do not get from most of the other sources. So thank you very much, and have